Hey everyone, welcome back to Founder's Story. We got an incredible episode. Everyone has been asking, they want to find out what it's like to sell your business for over 100 million. So that's why we have Alex Monahan, the engineer turned entrepreneur, graduated from Stanford and founded OddsJam, which has been titled the Bloomberg Terminal of Sports Betting and sold for $160 million back in December, which is insane. Alex, that's like everyone's dream. If I could sell my company for $160 million, I'll be pretty happy. So let's go back though. Let's go back in time. What was
Yep.
this for entrepreneurship for you?
I mean, honestly, I feel like in college, or just when I was younger, everyone has ideas for businesses, but they never like took off. I'd experiment in college with, oh, I should try this, I should try this. I never really liked any of the things I was working on. I also feel like I never really had an edge, but the way Odds Jam kind of came to be is I took my first job out of college. I've always loved gambling. I love poker. With the $14 in my Robinhood account, I liked like trading stocks, just honestly anything that was gambling, making bets with my friends. So I took a job in trading in Pennsylvania at this company called Susquehanna, and sports betting legalized like right when I took the job. So, I mean, there was probably a period of 6 months before really sports betting really took off. We're in the office, at a trading firm. People talked about their wives, what they were doing in the weekend. But then, like, I mean, everybody, these guys, traders, right? Like, they're trading calls, puts, natural gas, these complex financial products. A ton of people got interested in sports betting. So it kind of became the talk of the office. And honestly, I started sports betting and I had a lot of resources like my bosses at the time. These guys were really successful in trading these complex financial products and they kind of taught me a lot about sports betting. So I started to bet a ton myself, like, I mean, tons, like hours and hours and hours a day. I would get home from work. I was in a new city. I didn't really know anybody. I would gamble, 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 talk to my work colleagues, go watch games with them, gamble, gamble, gamble. And to be clear, this wasn't just like, oh, let's bet on the Lakers. We like LeBron, like data driven sports betting, like, quant trader type sports betting. So ultimately during COVID, I mean, when there was literally nothing to do, I spent a ton of time sports betting, researching it, and ultimately was just like, I think, as more states start to legalize, there's a huge opportunity to bring actually good products to sports betting. Because a lot of the stuff I would look for, because I'm a huge sports bettor myself, I used to bet tons. I mean, I was gambling very seriously for 2 years before we even started the business. So I was like, this is what I would want. There's nothing like it. All the content is horrible. It's just guys flexing Rolexes and Ferraris and claiming, they can see the future and know if the Lakers are going to win the championship. Like, so I kind of thought like, wow, there's really a data driven, there's a need for like data, right? There's hundreds of sports books launching in the US, basically a Bloomberg terminal for gambling, for sports bettors, because nobody has access to data right now. And also, all the content sucks. So there needs to be somebody in some company that's actually putting out good content on the math behind sports betting. What is plus 200? What is minus 200? What's the difference? What's the difference in win probability? How does a sports book calculate parlay odds? Like all this basic stuff, right? The math behind sports betting. Nobody did content on it. There was no data in sports betting. So we kind of started OddsJam to try to be the Bloomberg terminal for sports betting, real-time odds from every book, consolidated, packaged into different pools at affordable pricing for consumers, to ideally try to help them, become better sports bettors.
We hear this a lot with other successful entrepreneurs. You find a problem that you want to be solved, and then you solve that problem knowing that other people probably want the same thing that you want yourself, and then that you build it based on that. So you build this, you know the concept, the idea, you've been in the space, you start to implement it. Some of the hardest things is getting those first customers or first clients. How was that process for you in the beginning?
Scary. I mean, I quit my job, which, I mean, I was young, right? I was 24, 25 at the time. So, like, we kind of thought about it, my co founder and I, if we could make 30K MRR a month, 30K a month, like, and we can travel, I can go to Arizona. Like, I mean, it's so cold in Pennsylvania. It's always snowing. It's like, if I can get out of here, get out of this corporate rut, getting up at 7 to like go into the office, like, and I liked my job, to be clear. I love gambling. So I really enjoyed trading, but like, I definitely, I'm not the biggest fan of Pennsylvania. I don't know anybody there. I don't have family there and, whatever. So I would say it was really scary. We just kind of grinded. We made some posts on Reddit. We made some posts in sports betting groups, and the product initially was priced at like $6. And very quickly, we started getting subscribers. So then we increased the price for, new subscribers, and really nothing changed. Kept getting, if we'd make a post for $6 or $50, same amount of people kept coming in. So we started reinvesting a little bit of that money into influencers. We paid a guy to make a YouTube video, got like 70 customers in a day, which at the time, $50 a month, like, I mean, it doesn't obviously seem massive, but 3.5K MRR, it's like, oh my gosh, like we just need 4 more of this. And that's kind of how we started it and got our first customers. And then from there, I would say the hardest part, we stagnated for a while, like 20, 30K MRR revenue per month for like 4 months, maybe. And we had this guy who basically signed up for our product and then he churned and was like, hey, I have a bunch of experience running subscription businesses, whatever, reach out to me. I'm happy to give you tips. Your product doesn't work for me in Florida because we don't really have FanDuel, any of these sports books, but I'm happy to give you some tips. And he basically told us, like, why are you only paying influencers? Like, both of you guys are such, babies, essentially. Like, if you're not willing to put your own face behind the product, go back to your old jobs. And it was harsh advice in some ways, but it was also very true, right? Where it's like, oh, like, so then we started doing our own content. I was always scared. I never used social media. I'd never done a YouTube video. I'd never made, a TikTok. I'd never gone on an interview, never used Instagram. So then it was like, okay, like I'll start making some tutorials about the product. I don't have to wait months for some of these influencers to get it done. I mean, some of these guys, it's like you pay them $3,000. It's like, oh, like, whatever. I decided to go on vacation. I'll get it done a month later. And that's really when we really started to take off. I mean, there were days we were gaining $20,000 MRR a day just off a YouTube video when we had a very small channel.
So when you were looking at this and deciding where that you should put this content or the emphasis, if you were putting it into many places, when you figured that out, where did you hone in on? What did you say, okay, we need to double down on this specific social platform, or we need to spread and do more social platforms? What was working for you?
Yeah, I'd say we started on YouTube because honestly, because that's where our initial influencers were. Like we started working with YouTubers who would make tutorials. So when we saw them, when they actually did the work and did the video and didn't do a horrible job, we were getting a ton of customers, which is why I started with making YouTube videos. And then it was kind of, all in on YouTube. I mean, there were days I was printing 4 or 5, like all I was doing was YouTube. I would start different channels, some about fantasy, and I would just print YouTube, YouTube, YouTube. At some point, I don't want to say got tapped, but we stopped growing as quickly. So then I got, on Twitter and we saw kind of another huge spike off the bat. Really the journey from like 0 to maybe 150,000 Twitter followers, just talking about the product, giving out bets with the product, providing a lot of free value, which I'm a big believer in, is if you do a lot of free content about the way you're finding bets and why people should think like this, you gain a lot of credibility and you're providing a lot of free value to people. So we started with YouTube, then went to Twitter, then went to Twitch, TikTok, whatever. Now we kind of do all of them. YouTube and Twitter, I would say, are most important to us, are our main platforms, but like really anywhere we think sports bettors live, we want to be.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you've seen the transitions of sports betting being from something that I didn't hear much about it. A lot of states started legalizing it, and then I'm seeing like ESPN and there's networks now that have sports betting integrated with a lot of the shows. How has the transition be as sports betting has become bigger and bigger and mainstream media, traditional outlets have started to pick it up? How did that impact OddsJam?
Yeah. I mean, I think we definitely got, I don't want to say we didn't do a good job, but it definitely helped to be early, right? By that, I mean, we had money to reinvest, and kind of the more states that legalize sports betting, the second a state legalizes gambling, you have all these multi-billion dollar companies shoving, I mean, shoving. It's every billboard, every TV ad, every sports broadcast, every commercial break, right? Like shoving sports betting down people's throats. So as more and more people start to gamble, more people naturally search how to bet on sports on YouTube, which drives more people to us, which ultimately increases our revenue. So in many ways, we piggyback by providing free content. We piggybacked off of the, I mean, just gross advertising budgets of sports books, who they do the hard work of spending billions of combined dollars a quarter to try to gain market share and get people to gamble. And then we just step in and provide the actually valuable content, tutorials, all that stuff. So it's been huge. It's everywhere now. I mean, sports betting, especially obviously it depends, what state you're in. Some states still don't have online regulated sports betting, but I mean, you know, I mean, when I was in Pennsylvania, even when I still had my full time job and started to gamble, I feel like it was everywhere. I mean, just billboards, TV commercials, it was everywhere.
It's like every billboard is sports betting or an attorney
Exactly.
for injury or sports betting.
Exactly.
So
Get in the car accident. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, when you looked at yourself and what you had to change personally as the company continued to grow, what changes did you have to make?
Yeah. I mean, at first, it's a lot of it was just being scrappy, doing things I honestly still wouldn't say I'm comfortable with. Like, I really liked in many ways before OddsJam, living a very private life. I gamble when I want to gamble. So now just kind of like having to do content consistently, like that was in some ways a learned skill, but also just a learned barrier, or like a barrier I had to overcome, a fear in some ways. Like a lot of people have fears of public speaking, putting themselves out there. I definitely did too. So something like that, you're gonna have some people who don't like you, who think your advice sucks and you're an idiot, and you lose them a bet and they're mad. So some stuff like that at first, and then kind of just transitioning to, actually being a founder, right? Hiring, right? I think that was challenging at first, hiring and managing. I just left college. I've never managed somebody. I've never had to hire and make hard decisions, hiring and firing. Capital allocation. Do we want to get another engineer, or do we want to get a growth person? Do we want to build this feature or this feature? So, in some ways too, at OddsJam, like we acquired a few smaller businesses. One of them was our main competitor initially, and just like how to think about those things, how to try to, we acquired our initial data provider, which kind of really is what allowed the business to have a data advantage, to have the fastest data, the most comprehensive data, and really, in some ways, help us have the best product on the market by far. So I would say all those things I never expected, but just kind of like figured it out. And again, I think like if you're trying to do the right thing and you roughly know what you want to do, hiring isn't that bad, right? Like I've created content now for OddsJam. We've hired some people who do content, whether they're contractors or whatever. And like I kind of know, I'm no expert, but like I kind of know what works for us. Platforms work for us, what messaging. So you can kind of tell when someone resonates. At the same time, like, you know, I used to write some of our marketing emails. I kind of know what works, what gets clicks, what subject lines, all that sort of stuff. So when we went out to hire an email marketer, who we now have like a full-time employee just writes emails, sales and marketing, like I kind of know the type of person who I think will be a good fit. So a little bit of a learned skill, but I feel like a lot of it happens naturally.
I had a mentor once tell me, be an inch deep and a mile wide. Know a little bit about a lot of things. So you can tell, like if you hire a vendor and you don't want to get screwed over, know at least enough. Or, I think in the digital marketing space, that's always like something I've a big proponent on is I want to know a little bit about how to do ads, SEO, like because you just don't know. I mean, it's really easy, I think, to get screwed over as a founder many times. Let's go to the date when you heard or when whatever, however it went down in terms of the acquisition. So when you were on a call, in a meeting, whatever that was like, and you found out that you got this offer. What was that like?
Yeah, I'd say we knew, like, we'd known the founders of gambling.com for a while, kind of their executive team. Like, I had dinner with them, so it's not like it was a complete shock or like, who are these guys? I've never heard of this company. You know, they're definitely one of the leading companies. There aren't that many public companies, right, in the sports betting industry who aren't sports books. Like, we all know DraftKings, but what other companies kind of exist in the ecosystem? I'd also say, like, people maybe the first time someone reached out and was like, "Oh, you have a cool business, like, would love to buy it," was, like, kind of exciting and you got a rush, but most of the time it's, like, complete BS, and also, if anything, we just kinda, like, cut out the noise for most of the business because I think, like, it's hard to be really heads down and focused on growth, building long-term value, really focused on driving customers' value if you're also, like, running around, constantly thinking about this type of stuff. But I think we realized at OddsJam, like, you know, there's probably more we can do and we can grow faster and get our data more places if we have the right partner who's really well connected all throughout the world. Because we're mainly at OddsJam, right, a US business. But like, how can we expand to Canada, Europe, get our data in the hands of other companies as well? And we kind of saw it as a fit. So I would say it was exciting, but also like, you know, we had good bankers, we had good lawyers during the sale process. So really what I tried to do is stay heads down as much as possible, right? And just focus on the day to day, continuing to grow the business, have a solid foundation. So if the deal did fall through, like, we still have a great business and we still have a lot of opportunity and we're executing on the right ideas to continue to grow into, you know, 2025, 2026, whatever. So I would say it was exciting, but it just kind of like happened because I tried to keep it out of my mind until literally the day the deal's done. Is like, this is happening maybe, but like, I'm operating so I don't go through these huge emotional swings or whatever. I want to be happy in either situation and feel like we're going to crush it and like continue to dominate this industry, whether it happens or not. So I tried to largely keep it out of my mind. Like, it's really hard, I feel like, to stay focused on the day to day grinding to grow the business if, like, you know, you're imagining yourself like on a yacht, right? Like, and then if the deal doesn't go through, you're going to be miserable. So I just tried to isolate it and be like, this is cool. Lawyers, bankers are working on it. I'm helping, I'm joining some meetings. But my number one priority is making sure we're driving customers' value, continuing to grow the business, executing on the right ideas, have the right product roadmap, have the right team, designers, product people, engineers, whatever.
I think most business owners, at least in the US, an exit is really a pinnacle or peak moment. It's what a lot of them are going for. So when you look back at, I know you were at the 30 million ARR mark for revenue. When you look back at what attracted them to it, beyond the revenue that you were making, was there anything else that companies look at when they want to acquire a company?
Yeah. I mean, I think profit margin, right? Like, revenue is obviously great, but there are some companies, right, who are unprofitable. So at OddsJam, we were, you know, profitable. And also I just think there's a lot of expansion opportunities. Like, again, we are, and it's hard to put a finger on some of those things, like how to quantify, but I do think the company has a lot of room to run. We have probably the best data in the industry, in my opinion. We've really only penetrated the US, which is a tiny sports betting market relative to the rest of the world. If you think about, you know, the US just legalized sports betting, it's not in Texas, right? It's not even in some of the biggest states in the US. So I think we have a lot of room to run. There's still more states to legalize. So there's still a lot of growth in the industry ahead. And I think also we have a good team, right? Like, we have a tech advantage, we have a data advantage, and we also have a great team where we're not reliant on one person. I could die tomorrow and OddsJam could still be super successful. We have a great head of growth. We have a great head of product. We have a great CTO. You know, we have people executing on the right ideas. We're all aligned on what we're trying to build. So, I mean, obviously the financial metrics are important, But at the same time, I think it's just like growth potential of the industry. And like, again, like we didn't try every marketing channel, right? Like we are largely a US company. We never really even tried to expand into other countries with much more developed sports betting markets. Horse racing, you think about, like we never even tried. And like there's definitely opportunity and room to run, kind of for the business, which I think is obviously important to gambling.com or acquire. And there's a lot of places you can use the data. I mean, we constantly have startups, media companies who want to include betting widgets now in their articles and stuff like that. Because again, like sports betting really has taken over so much. So if you're a media site nowadays, like, you kind of want these types of things because there's money to make in sports betting. And most importantly, more of your consumers want to see this type of information because most of them are gambling at this point.
Yeah, I know a lot of people 20s and 30s. Before I would have thought it was maybe 40, 50, and a 50, 60 up. I know many people 20s and 30s that are into this, and they're diehard sports betting or sports fans that are really getting into it. So we had a recent entrepreneur on who had a significant exit like yours. They didn't remain much afterwards. They got very depressed and they had to walk through, what do they do next in their life? And I thought that was an interesting take on it. How was the post acquisition for you? And where do you spend most of your time now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at OddsJam, like we kind of, I love my job, right? I like sports and I like gambling. I'm a sports nut. I, grew up playing sports, obviously was not good enough to play at any actually competitive level, but like I enjoy sports. I love gambling. So those aren't things that have faded. It's not like I'm miserable. I'm staying on at the acquiring company. We have financial incentives to stay on. And like, I'm happy and I want to continue to see my baby succeed. I do think there's a lot of opportunity to run. So in some ways, it's like the company sold and like, oh, your life massively changed. In other ways, it hasn't really changed. I'm still working in sports on betting at the same, in the same thing overall. Now I'm a part of a bigger company and really just trying to build the best tools, provide the best data, the best content to sports bettors, educate sports bettors, bring in new users. So like in some ways, life hasn't changed that much. Also at OddsJam, like, we didn't have investors, so we never had pressure to sell. We never had pressure in any way. And also, in some ways, what that means is like we gradually grew into wealth, right? Like we went from a company where my co-founder and I, right, I said it, I think at the start, we wanted to make like 30K a month, right? Have 15K each to travel. So like going from 30 to 50 to 100 to $1 million a month, like when you kind of gradually move up in wealth, I feel like there's no like massive change or like life shift maybe that necessarily happens. Like we're already making good money and could have continued to run the business and be very happy. So in many ways, it's like where I'm living, all that sort of stuff hasn't really changed. I think I heard like a previous interview with another founder who said something similar is just like, if you run like a company where you're paying yourself $30,000 salary and doing that for 10 years and then you have an exit, like how it can like completely warp your brain and you start blowing money and then you get depressed and you're partying and you're traveling and doing these crazy things. But kind of at OddsJam, like, it everything happens so slowly in some ways. I mean, it obviously happens somewhat quickly, but at the same time, things progress slowly where like my life hasn't really changed since the company's been bought. I mean, maybe a little less pressure in some ways, more pressure in other ways, but overall I'm still working on the same things which I like. So, overall, pretty uneventful answer, but I do think it's the truth.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the fact that you bootstrapped this company and you slowly built it and you slowly built into it, you didn't have all that pressure. It seems like a lot of people, they just really quick to want to take money, but don't realize there's going to be pressure. They can get kicked out of their own company. There's a lot of people making decisions above them now. They're basically almost working for somebody else, in that sense. So the fact that you were able to slowly build this and build into the wealth. I think that's a really fascinating perspective. I have a question around hours worked, burnout, balance. There's a huge debate now around, can I be a founder and see success and work, I don't want to work 15 hours a day. I don't want to get burnt out. I want to have balance. I want to do all these things and still be able. But other people, many successful people we've had on said no, they had to work 20 hours a day. Their business was all that they could do. Many got divorced, many, had ruined relationships because they had to focus so much on the company. Balance was all that they could do. So what is your perspective on this?
I think most of the burnout has been internal, like frustration with myself, my own performance. Again, I like gambling. I like sports. I watch sports. I gambled as a hobby. So obviously working in sports and gambling is a bit different than, sitting there and just turning on the TV and opening DraftKings all day. So obviously it's a little different. But in many ways, it's like I never felt burnt out because it's things I kind of like I truly enjoyed to do. I think I would be burnt out if I had to work 40 hours a week in a healthcare job because I don't care. Like it's just like it's not that I don't care. That sounds horrible, but like I'm never going to be the guy who's like I just want to grind and start a medical company and like it's just not something I'm super passionate about. I wake up thinking about, I think in the shower about, and obviously I think it's super important to society and have a lot of respect for people who work on that type of thing. But like, or like, I'm not some super nerdy electrical engineer. I want to build a better airplane. Like I could never do that type of business. I don't know anything about it, but also like I'm not interested in it. So like I probably will never know anything about it. So I mean, I definitely feel like you have to work a lot, but I do think a lot boils down to working smart too, right? I don't think I mean, I definitely worked more hours at first than I do now because we didn't have money. So like you had to do everything, right? Sales, email, marketing, design, product, like it was me and my co-founder. But I remember the first day we hired our first employee who ended up doing customer support because when our YouTube video started taking off, we would have, I mean, there were days we'd get 500 messages and emails. And that's when it was like, I'm just overwhelmed. Like, in some ways, you're super excited. It's like, dude, like, I remember looking at my co founder, went to Florida to visit one of our advisors. And I was like, dude, there are like 500 people who want to put their credit card into our site, but they just have questions. Like, that's crazy. So I think in some ways it was really exciting, but I think like the second we hired our first customer service guy, it's like in many ways I started working less right off the bat, but then started working on other things. But I don't know. But at the same time, I do think like if you're not paranoid and grinding, like there's always someone who, when you're out partying, drinking at 9 p.m. on a Friday, your competitor who sees your success and that you're making money, they're coming after you. And some of them may be stupid and slow or horrible engineers, but like the bigger you get, eventually you're going to have someone really good biting at your, who's coming after you. So I do think like it is important to outwork the competition for sure. But I also think it's like, what are you trying to build, right? If you're just trying to like make enough money to be happy, but if you're trying to like build a business and outcompete other businesses and take their market share, you're going to have to outwork them, I feel like. So I definitely think like it's hard to start a company if you're not working at least 70, 80 hours a week. But also I think the main thing, my perspective, is not being distracted. We have competitors who do like 4 other businesses. It's like, yeah, I'm like starting this sports betting company to try to compete with you guys. I also have this radiology thing. And it's like, they all may make money and stuff, but you're never gonna outcompete us as a new player spending 10 hours a week on this, right? Like when I'm working 80 and we have more money and a team working 80 hours a week, each person, like it's going to be pretty hard to beat us. So I do think like picking one thing, if you're really trying to launch a tech company and like take market share from other people, like, I don't know, like obviously there's the crazy geniuses like Elon Musk and whatever. But like that people are always like, well, he can run like 6 companies. And it's like, yeah, but like he's a super genius and like you're not, I'm not, like we're regular dudes. So like you gotta pick one thing if you want to be good at it and you want to win at it. I feel like you can't play professional basketball, baseball, and football, man.
People have tried and they weren't very successful. So
Yeah.
I like this saying then after you mentioned this, only the paranoid will survive. And you have to outwork your competition. I took that away from this. And then another thing that I found that I liked what you just said was you're really passionate about it, but you're also very good at it. Yeah, I think there's a thing I can be passionate about something. Maybe I'm not great at it, but if I'm passionate about it and I know I'm great at it, and I know what the market wants. Like you, I can work sometimes 15, 16 hours a day. Somebody said to me recently, like, wow, you're working like sometimes 6 a.m. and sometimes 11 p.m. I'm like, yeah, but I really enjoy it. So it's not like burning me out in the sense I really, really enjoy what I'm doing. So I took that away from you. And I hope to one day, Alex, I'm going to come back to you. When I exit for $100 million, I'm going to come back and say, look, I took the advice of Alex Monahan, and here I'm at. But if you want to get in touch with you and they want to find out more information, how can they do so?
Yeah, I mean, we can include my email in the description. I can say it now if it's helpful. Email's best. Twitter, I'm on Twitter. It's Alex Monahan 100. So anybody who has questions about whatever, sports betting, business, really anything, like you can DM me on Twitter. My DMs are open. Email, Twitter, whatever.
This has been great, Alex. I learned a lot today. I've been very inspired since the first conversation that we had. I can't wait to learn more about OddsJam, about what you're doing, about how what you do after. I'm sure that, in a few years from now, you're going to be doing something else. So we got to make sure that you come back, tell us what happens then. The life of an entrepreneur that doesn't exit, that goes through the acquisition and then does something else after. Yeah, this is like the life cycle of entrepreneurship, and I'm very happy for everything. I can tell you're like a genuine good person, and it really comes out. You have great energy. So thank you so much though for joining us today on
That.
Underscore.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You have great energy too. So it's been great. Thank you.